As Tia got older, as she was developing into a young woman, his behaviour and his feelings changed towards Tia.
I couldn't even describe it. I detest him. I want him to suffer. He's worse than a monster. He's the evil of the evilest.
What is your definition of evil? A scary, slender man chasing you through a dark forest? A psychotic neighbor who's really into your kids? What if I told you that there was a man that a 12-year-old girl called Grandpa abused her, killed her, and hid her body, all the while pretending he was a loving family man? This is the truly tragic case of little Tia Sharp. Trigger warning, this case is about to get as sick as they get. This is your chance to turn back. Tia Christine Sharp was born on June 30th, 2000, to Stephen and Natalie, who lived in Croydon in South London, UK. When Tia was still a baby, her parents split up and Stephen moved away. Nevertheless, the family remained very close, and Stephen still spent a lot of time with his daughter. Tia was not only close to her parents, but also with her maternal grandma, Christine. Tia spent so much time with Christine that she sometimes called her mom.
I was there when she was born. I saw Tia born. That was my first grandchild. That was untold love. That was it. Nothing was taking that away.
Tia grew up into a very confident middle school student.
Tia grew up, it became clear that she was quite a firecracker. She was somebody who had very strong opinions, she would air her feelings, and she wasn't afraid of letting people know that she was in the room.
In fact, Natalie described her as the loudest one in the room. A funny and creative girl with lots to talk about. She and Natalie would talk about anything.
Obviously, it was a mother and daughter bond, but I wouldn't have said that it was a mother and daughter bond. I'd have said that she was more like my best friend.
But while Natalie was a single mom, Christine wasn't. In 2002, Christine was working as a bartender when she met Stuart Hazell. He was 10 years younger than Christine, but the two became best friends. 5 years later, they were an item too, and Stuart moved in with Christine, the same house little Tia lived in at the time. Tia took a liking to Stuart and started calling him Granddad. It all seemed like the perfect family. But in 2008, social services started investigating Tia's family. Tia had a pretty low school attendance rate, which was highly unusual for an 8-year-old. Social services soon found that Natalie and her new partner were smoking a huge amount of cannabis, and it seemed like Tia was being mildly neglected. The report described her family as dysfunctional, but social services didn't look into Stuart Hazell, not nearly enough.
With Hazell, there's lots of dysfunctional factors in his background, lots of risk factors. First of all, he had a difficult relationship with his parents. His mother was a prostitute, his dad was in prison, so therefore he went into care at a young age.
Stuart's tough childhood meant that he grew up with a warped version of reality. He was often violent as a kid and had very low grades in school. It gets worse.
In Hazell's case, he claims that he was at the age of 16. And when somebody has suffered trauma in childhood, psychological trauma, physical trauma, that can lead to them using violence as the first response to any challenge that they have.
With his mother working as a prostitute and him being violated as a teenager, Stuart was exposed to the nasty side of from a very young age. Unfortunately, this would trigger some very dark obsessions in him. You might ask, didn't Christine see Stuart's issues as his girlfriend?
She knew that he had issues with alcohol, but it wasn't very obvious. He seemed to be quite a nice guy, so he didn't display any obvious aggression traits, for example.
But Stuart never quit drugs or heavy drinking or violence for that matter. In 2010, he was convicted of carrying a machete and spent a whole year in jail. All the while, Christine defended him.
Like a gentle giant. Obviously, I know he had a criminal record. I know he drank. I know he smoked weed, but I didn't know the extent.
Christine had said to Stuart that whatever was in his past stayed in his past. She didn't judge him for his tough childhood or his violent history. But Stuart had 30 previous convictions, which Christine knew nothing of. He was happy Christine accepted him for who he was and didn't ask any questions about his past, because his past was truly horrific.
We see drug offences, cocaine offences, dealing cocaine. We see criminal damage, we see burglary, we see theft. We also see violence. There was racially motivated violence and GBH in his background.
If you don't know what GBH is, it's a grievous bodily harm. Stuart abusing substances also meant he had little control over his violence. He was aggressive and impulsive. But when she was with Stuart, Christine felt safe and loved.
He was good to her. He made her smile. He was good with the kids. He was good with the house. I don't know, at some point he was everything that she needed.
Meanwhile, Natalie had 2 more sons with her new partner, and Stuart was a good granddad to everyone, or so it seemed. Everyone admired Stuart for his friendliness towards the kids, and Tia admired him more than anyone else.
She idolised him, I wish she didn't, and I wish part of her did hate him, but the fact was she never did. She couldn't wait to be around him, she idolised him, and he did her.
Natalie and Christine were so trusting of Stuart. They let Tia sleep overnight at Christine's place while she was working at night shifts at the pub. They didn't see any problems in Tia sleeping under the same roof with Stuart. But when everyone was gone, Stuart could have a better look at Tia. He'd developed a sick obsession with her. She was his fantasy.
There's no doubt in my mind that Hazell became fascinated by Tia, convinced himself that Tia loved him.
He was looking at illegal underage pictures, daddy and daughter in pictures.
For a while, Stuart got off peeking at Tia dress up, undress, or shower. Tia felt comfortable around him. He'd known her since she was 2 years old. For her, he was her granddad. She had no idea he pictured her very differently.
As Tia got older, as she was developing into a young woman, his behaviour and his feelings changed towards Tia.
For him, Tia is growing into a young woman that, as far as he is concerned, is becoming somebody of sexual interest.
Soon, voyeurism wasn't enough for him anymore. Stuart began filming Tia while she was applying body lotion to her legs. Then he filmed her asleep in her bed. In that creepy recording, he also took a moment to film his own looming shadow on the wall. He enjoyed the power. Within the following months, Stuart set up a spy hole from the bathroom into Tia's room. There was no going back from this. On June 30th, 2012, Tia celebrated her 12th birthday. Natalie and Christine were going to take Tia to a nearby town for a weekend trip when they asked her what friend she was going to bring along. She said Stuart.
There is a real tragedy in this relationship. Here we have a young girl who fully trusts her grandfather, loves her grandfather, enjoys spending quality time with him. The polarities of viewpoint from what Tia sees him as to what Hazell actually is are so at odds with each other.
He had been searching for people on internet sites.
On August 2nd, 2012, Tia texted Stuart asking if she could come and spend a few nights at Christine's house. Stuart then texted Natalie asking for her permission. Christine wouldn't be at home those days. Trusting as always, Natalie said yes, and an excited Tia left within minutes. She met Stuart at the new Addington train stop. They went shopping together, and then they went home. This was the last footage of Tia. On August 3rd, Christine got home and Tia was nowhere to be found. Stuart told her she had gone to Croydon to get flip-flops. But at 6 p.m., Christine knew something was wrong. She contacted Natalie and they both drove around South London, frantically looking for her and unsuccessfully trying to contact her phone. At 10 p.m., they went to the police station and Stuart came with them. He seemed just as worried as them. Stuart told the police Tia had left his house at around noon. One of his neighbors could confirm this, so his story stood. The police also searched his house and found no body.
A simple human error from an officer who was inexperienced and perhaps not properly trained for that role had led to the body not being found.
The investigation moved forward. Stuart was not a suspect. However, he felt like one. When the media started arriving and investigating the case, he even requested an interview with ITV. He wanted to make it clear that he was innocent.
They believe what they read in the papers, they can do whatever they like, because I know deep down in my heart that Tia walked out my house.
He said he loved Tia like a daughter, and even comforted his girlfriend in front of the camera, showing what a good, supportive person he was. Meanwhile, Tia's body was cocooned in a bedsheet, trash bags, and black tape, decomposing in Christine's loft. A week later, the smell was unbearable. Christine had just gone to sniff around and get to the root of the problem when the police knocked on her door. They wanted to search the house for a fourth time. This time, they came out with Tia's body. She was so decomposed, the police had to use dental records to identify her. Stuart was immediately the prime suspect. He was already miles away when the police arrested him at 8:25. As he got taken away in a police van, the public cursed him. This was the ultimate betrayal. Christine had brought Stuart into her home, and she butchered the person who she loved the most. The police also arrested Christine and soon released her, but they didn't allow her to be near Natalie or her two sons for a few days. These were crucial days when the family needed to be together and try to cope with what had happened. Stuart's story to the police was that he'd passed out from drinking. When he woke up, he found Tia had fallen down the stairs and died. Feeling guilty, he tried to cover it up. But soon enough, the police found Stuart's pictures hidden on a memory card inside his home. The very last picture he took was of Tia's naked body, manipulated into a sexual position. She was dead at this point.
This image depicted a naked female on all fours with the photograph being taken from behind her.
This was Stuart's trophy. He wanted to go back to the moment and relive it. It gets worse. The police uncovered a vibrator from the house and sent it to DNA testing. It had Tia's DNA and blood on it. Her step-granddad had violated her.
I couldn't even describe it. I detest him. I want him to suffer. He's worse than a monster. He's the evil of the evilest.
Amidst this all, Stuart pled not guilty, even sending a letter to his dad, doubling down on the fake story he'd given the cops. But at his trial in May 2013, Stuart showed his true side. He didn't look at Natalie or Christine at all. When the prosecution showed his gruesome pictures, he even seemed to revel in it. The world could finally see him for what he was. After 4 long days, Stuart admitted he was guilty. However, he never told Tia's family how she died. The prosecution's theory is that Stuart killed Tia after he made sexual advances and she refused, threatening to tell her mom about it.
He murdered Tia because that night he made sexual advances to her. And because Tia was a feisty young girl, I think Tia responded angrily to his advances, said that she was going to tell her mum, and he shut her up.
Tia's horrifying abuse and murder is made even worse by the way Stuart manipulated her body afterwards.
He totally dehumanizes and humiliates the body, using it for his pleasure with absolutely no moral care, no emotional feelings towards somebody that from 2 years of age he has held as his own.
Stuart will spend the rest of his life behind bars with a minimum of 38 years before parole. But this does nothing to ease the pain Tia's family feels every single day.
Just to imagine her screaming and I can't get to her kills me.
Christine, Natalie, and the 2 boys are closer than they've ever been. Tia's tragedy made them realize once again how important family, real family, is. And that is the truly tragic case of Tia Sharp. Thanks for watching, you guys. Don't be shy. Give this video a like and subscribe. And if you can take it, why not check out the other disturbing cases? Have a good night, stay safe, and take care of each other. It's scary out there.